All right, everyone. Welcome to Introduction to Linux Command Line. My name is Douglas Tondrew, and this is CSF 102 Cybersecurity Fundamentals. So for today's course, I am going to introduce you some of the Linux command line basics that you are required to utilize this week and for your assignments. So let's take a look at what the agenda is going to cover as far as the Linux command line. So this week, we're going to look at Linux command line structure. So I'm going to talk about the command line structure and exactly how to perform it. I am going to teach you how to enter the Linux terminal. And I'm going to talk about configuring the Linux terminal a little bit. I'm going to teach you how to use the Linux help command, the whoami command, the pwd command, the password command, the cd, mkdir, rmdir, the touch command, the mv command, the rm command, the ls command, the su command, the sudo command, the grep command, and lastly, we're going to learn how to use the clear command to clear things up on our screen. Okay, who am I? So what is that command responsible for, and exactly what does it do? So in order for us to be able to truly answer that question, we are going to have to turn on and start our VM. So to do that, all I have to basically do is go to my virtual machine as that we set up before, double click on Linux, and your VM should basically be able to start itself. Once you have your VM and your Linux up and running, you will see the screen that you have here. So how do I access the terminal on my Linux machine? To access the terminal, I'm simply going to go to the bottom left-hand corner. I'm going to go to System Tools, and I'm going to click on LX Terminal. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to customize the terminal a little bit so that way I can see it. So I'm going to go to Edit. Let's go to Edit Preferences. Okay. And let's make a few changes. So let's go to Display. And we'll leave the default window size alone. At the style, we'll change the font, make the font a little bit bigger, right? Because 10's kind of small. So we could change the font. Let's make it 17 so we can see exact. 16's fine to see exactly what it is that we're running. Let's change the display. The display is fine, okay? But if you want, you can kind of come in here and change a few of the things that's kind of in your command. You can change the color. You can really make it look a little bit different, okay? So I just made the text a little bit bigger so that way everyone can kind of see exactly what is being written here, okay? So who am I? What does that command essentially do? So let's type it in and see exactly what happens on the who am I command. Okay, so who am I? Okay, you notice when you type it, okay, what happens is your Linux shows you the name of the user who you are. Okay, so if I was to write echo who am I, okay, all it essentially displays is it displays back who am I. So who am I actually shows you who the current user is that is logged into the machine. So that's what who am I essentially really does. And if you notice, the structure of running commands in Linux is really specific, right? So when you're running your commands, you want to make sure that you write that command followed by a space and make sure that there are no dots or extra information that is not necessary in that command. Okay, so given that I wrote who am I, it shows me that I am logged in as system, right? So that's who I am. So the who am I command is responsible for showing you the current user that you are. Okay, so that's exactly what it does, which I'm sure most of you kind of were able to figure out for the most part. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at the next command that we will need to tackle on our system. Okay, so that's what the whoami command did. pwd. So pwd stands for print directory or print working directory. Okay, so what that command essentially does in your Linux machine is it will show you the directory that you are currently logged into. Okay, so if I write pwd, I will notice that I am currently in the home/system. So that is the current directory that I am in, right? And as we go through and change directories, you're going to see exactly how this works. So your directory is essentially the user that you're currently logged in as, right? So you'll be able to kind of see who that particular user is. So if you go to user and groups, okay, you'll see all the different types of users that you essentially have. But if you go into your folders, you click on the folders, okay, your directory is nothing more than a folder. So if I go to the folder here that I just clicked at the bottom, File Manager, you will notice that I have a bunch of folders that is currently set up, right? So when I click on the I'm sorry, the pwd print working directory, you'll notice home/system, okay? So if I actually navigate through these directories, I would be able to see exactly who that user essentially is, right? Home/system/public. So I'm just logged into home/system. So this is basically where I am, /home/system, and you'll notice that the system is right up here. So your directories are nothing more than a bunch of folders that you can utilize as a particular user for your system, right? So that's what print working directory does. Password. So the password command is very, very useful, okay? And what it essentially allows you to do is it allows you to go into your machine and change the password of a particular user, all right? Obviously, as your privileges elevate, you can change more passwords. So if I come here and I write PAS, again, it's PAS, PAS, PASSWD, and enter, you will notice that it's going to allow me to change the password for my system. So let me do it just so I can show you. So it's asking me for my current password, so I'm going to put it in. Okay. And then it shows me that I didn't change my password, right? Because I left the password the same. But watch what happens if I actually do change the password. So I'm going to do PASSWD. Okay. It's going to say, what would you like to change your password to? I'm just going to do, boom, enter. And you will notice that my password now has, I think it's saying password unchanged. But this is how you change. Let me do it again. I don't know why I did that. For system, okay. Unix password. Password unchanged. Manipulation error, okay? So I guess I'm writing something wrong in here, but this is the command for changing your Unix password. And I guess it's trying to change the password of the system as the root, which I don't have the privilege to do. But this is how you can change your password, all right? So let's continue right along here, all right? The next thing is CD, which stands for change directory. So let's take a look at exactly how this change directory works, okay? So right now I am inside of the system, right? That's who I am currently logged in as, right? So if I wanted to change directories, okay, the first thing I would need to do is I would need to understand exactly what I am changing. Yes, let me clear this screen so you guys can see what's going on. So right now, if I write ls, which stands for list files or list directories, I will notice that I have the following directories as a system user. I have the D directory, desktop directory, documents, downloads, music, new.html, pictures, public, templates, and videos. So let's take a look and see if that is accurate. You see that I have D, desktop, documents, downloads, music, pictures, public, templates, videos, and new.html. So those are the current directories that I have access to, okay? So if I wanted to change into one of those directories to get outside of that system directory that I am currently in, I would have to write CD, which stands for change directory. And then I could change to the desktop directory. So I am now on the desktop. So if I was to write ls, I will see all of the files that's on my desktop. And currently all I have on my desktop is index.php. So if I go to my desktop here, you will notice that all I have is index.php. I also have documents, so I don't know why it's not showing, but it should have showed the documents folder as well, right? So that is how you can change your directory. And if you wanted to go back, let's say you didn't want to be in the desktop directory, you realize you made a mistake, okay, clear. All clear essentially does is it clears your screen so that way you can write your command. If you wanted to go back from the desktop directory to the system or the previous directory, you would just write cd, okay, space // okay. So what that does is it brings you back one directory, okay. So the / basically brings you back one directory, and we'll keep going a little bit deeper into this so we can understand how that works, okay. So let's say I wanted to make a new directory. So how do I make a new directory? You guessed it, mkdir allows for me to make a directory. So if I wanted to make a directory, so I'm going to switch over to my desktop just so you guys can see it, okay? If I wanted to make a new directory, I can actually switch over to the directory I would like to create the directory in, or the file in. So I want to create a few folders for my desktop. So I'm going to write mkdir, and I'm going to call this one NBA, okay? And then I'm going to write mkdir, and I'm going to call this one NFL, okay? And I'm going to do mkdir, and I'm going to call this one CSF 102, right? So I was able to create, okay, all of these directories here simply by writing mkdir. Okay, so mkdir allows for me to be able to create a directory. Okay, so what if I wanted to remove a directory? If I wanted to remove a directory, I would use the rm function. Okay, so rm stands for remove, and I would specify exactly what directory I would like to remove. Okay, please remember that rm only works for removing directories that are empty. So if there's files in them, you have to specify the file that you would like to remove and then the directory. Okay, so I'm gonna write both commands to show you. So if I was to do rm NFL, okay, did I write it wrong? Yep, so I forgot to write the dir. Cannot, okay, so rm can only remove files. So rm dir, okay, notice I wrote rm dir NFL, okay, so I just deleted the NFL directory. If I do rm dir, okay, NBA, I just got rid of the NBA directory. So rmdir allows for me to remove a directory. What if I wanted to create a file, right? I wanted to create a file inside of that folder to test a few things. I wanted to create a basic website or write a Word document, etc. So to do that, I would have to use what's known as the touch command. So the touch command allows for me to create a file, right? So let's take a look at what that is going to essentially looks like, okay? So I am going to write the following. So I'm gonna actually switch into the, I'm just gonna create a basic text document on the desktop, and then I'm gonna create one in the CSF 102 folder. So I'm gonna write touch, okay? Touch, let me actually remove that from here. We don't want that, okay? So I'm gonna write touch, okay, example.txt, okay? So I just created a example.txt file, right? So the touch command allows for me to create, okay, any type of documents. I could even do touch sample.html, right? I can create an HTML document if I wanted to. Let me see. Touch. Hope I didn't spell it touch all the way. Make sure you don't make that mistake. Okay, so let's rewrite it. Clear. There's too much going on. Touch sample.html. Okay, so by writing that, I now have a HTML document that is on my page. What if I wanted to create a file inside of the CSF102 folder. All I would have to do is use the previous commands that we learned. I would have to do cd CSF102. Okay. Now I am inside the CSF102 folder, and I would do touch. Right. I can do db.php. I now have, sorry, I didn't spell touch right. Okay, db, touch, db. I now have a file inside of the CSF102 folder titled db.php. So let's take a look. db.php. So that is how you can create, okay, a file that will go inside of that directory. Again, if I want to get out of it, cd // I am back on my desktop. Okay, so that's how I go back one directory. All right, the more dots you have, the more directories you go back. Now let's say, you know what, I put the file in the wrong section. Okay, and I actually want to move the file. Right, I want to move it and to a new directory. So the mv command actually allows for you to move as well as rename files. Okay, so you want to be very, very mindful of how you use that command, because it can move a file, but it can also rename it. So let's take a look at an example of how that is done real quick. Okay, all right. So now that we know how to do that, let's actually see how the rm command will actually work. Okay, so let's clear this so we can see exactly what's going on here. Okay, and let's see how the rm command works. Let's first rename this file. After we rename it, let's move it over to the CSF102 folder. So to do that, I'm going to do rm. I'm going to write the name of the file, example.txt, space, and I'm just going to name it example. I'm going to remove the dot from it. You will notice that the file is now, okay, so let's see what it said here. No such file or directory exists, so let's do clear. Okay, and let's rename a different file since it's saying it doesn't exist. Let's rename let's change the sample .html file, right? So let's change that one. Okay. So let's do rm sample.html space. Let's just name it sample instead. Okay. rm removes. Oh, I'm sorry. It removed the file completely versus renaming it. Removes and deletes files or directories. Actually, what I'm supposed to be writing is the mv command. So my apologies about that. So I made a little mistake. Let's actually redo that. So I'm doing the rm. rm stands for remove. That's why all the files are being deleted. All right, so rm is the next command. As you can tell, rm removes and deletes files. Okay, so let's remake it. mkdir sample.txt. Okay, so here I have a sample.txt file. So the mv command allows for us to rename and move a file. So I'm going to do mv sample.txt space sample. Okay, you will notice now the sample.txt file is now named sample. Okay, so if I wanted to move that file into the CSF102 folder, I would simply do mv space sample space CSF102. Okay, and it will move it into the CSF102 folder. So if I open that folder, I will notice that I now have sample inside of that folder. Okay, so the move command allows for us to move a file or rename it. Okay, so the next command, which I was running incorrectly, is the rm command. So what if I wanted to delete the sample folder? Okay, I would navigate to the directory CSF102, enter. Okay, then I would do ls to make sure it's there. I see I have two things, d.php sample. Then I would do rm sample. Okay, and that would delete the folder. rm sample. Okay, so it's a directory. rm can't delete a directory, but it can delete a file, right? So if I want to delete the db.php, I could. So I'm going to do rm db.php. You notice I deleted it. So to remove the directory, I would have to do rmdir, which stands for remove directory sample. And I would delete that folder from my folder, okay, or that directory from the CSF102 directory. So I'm going to use clear. Okay, so that is how the rm command works. Again, so the mv command allows for you to move and rename a file. The rm command allows for you to remove and delete files or directories, but directories can only be deleted when they are all by themselves without any files inside of them. Okay, so given that I had two directories inside of another, I was not able to do that, so I had to use rmdir. The ls command we just went over, so what that essentially does is it allows for me as that user to list the files or list the directories that is available. So that's what ls does. Okay, so let's talk about super user. Okay, so a super user allows, okay, SU stands for super user or switch user, or there's a bunch of different names people have for it, but according to our book it says super user. Okay, so what a super user has the ability to do is it allows a user to become a root user. Okay, it requires a root password in order to become a root user. The root user has complete control of Linux files, directories, and programs. You can remain that user until you exit the terminal or log out of Linux. So let's take a look at how the super user works. Okay, so if I'm in my Linux system and I want to be a super user, I would simply write SU, enter. Just like the lecture PowerPoint said, we need a password. So I'm going to write an incorrect password. You will notice that access will be denied because I did not provide the proper password. So when you log in as a super user, you literally can configure and make every single kind of change that you can imagine possible. So a super user is the highest level of privilege that you have in a Linux environment. And you need to know the password of that root user in order to become a super user. Okay, sorry about that. So let's talk about sudo. Okay, sudo is a super user do. Okay, so a super user do allows for a Linux user to become a super user. Okay, so what that essentially means is it allows a regular user to run commands with super user privilege. Okay, it logs you in as that root user and you have complete control of every program. So you're essentially a super user. Okay, so it's a bypass of the SU to basically be able to become a super user without needing to write a password. This command is very dangerous because it allows you to execute anything as long as you put sudo before anything else that you write. So let's see this in action. Okay, so let's see exactly how this essentially works. So we could see what it's going to look like here for us. Okay, and again, this is a dangerous command, so please be very mindful when you are using it. Okay, you notice I couldn't log in as SU. Okay, but I did log into my system as a generic user. So I'm going to make my regular user become a super user. So I'm going to write sudo before that, and then I'm going to say I want my regular user to become a super user, right? Then it's going to say what is the password for your regular user. I'm going to write the password for my regular user, and now I will become, okay, sorry, try again. Okay, you notice now that I've written my password, I am a root user. So I am now logged in as a root user, and I can do anything that I would like to basically be able to do, right? And if I was to write, who am I, right? Look, oh, I'm a super user, right? It's showing that I am that root user. I have unlimited command, and I can do whatever it is that I would like to do on my system. So that is what a super user do allows for you to do. So if you wanted to download something or look into a file or change everyone's password on the computer, you could just log in, just run the sudo command before any command. So the sudo command allows for you to run and execute any command with super user privileges. Okay, so the sudo just works as long as you write sudo and the command after it. However, if you do su, you have to log in as the super user to have super user privileges. Okay, we're moving right along here. The grep command. Okay, so the grep command is one that I know many people often sometimes find very, very confusing. Okay, so the grep command is actually a command that is used a lot in Linux. Okay, and what the grep command essentially allows you to do, okay, so the grep command is used to search and filter the contents of files, okay, displaying the lines that match the search string. So the search string can be simple text, value to match a literal, or it can be used for a sophisticated pattern matching system called regular expression, okay. Grep is especially useful for searching long files such as system logs, etc. Okay. In our case, I'm going to keep it simple just so I can make sure you guys all have your head wrapped around it. So I am going to write it the simplest and easiest way I know how. Okay. So I created a file here, a directory called index.php, right? And in my index.php, I'm going to create a few things, all right? So let me actually make this font a little bit bigger so everyone could see. Okay, let's do 26. Okay, so I'm printing theme. Let's print a few things. Let's do theme. Let's write these things over and over. Let's do okay, so let's do themes, themes, themes. Let's do hello. Let's do hello. Let's write a few variables. Let's do first name equals Douglas. Okay, so I'm just going to save this and leave it, as is. Okay, so what does the grep command allow for me to do? So the grep command should be able to, okay, allow for me to pull information, right, from that file without needing to actually be logged in as that particular user. Okay, so what is the syntax for the grep command? It's, okay, the name of the file followed by the word that I am trying to find. Okay, so let's look for something using the grep command. Okay, let's see. So let's do grep, okay, space, I'm looking for, let's say, theme, okay, space, index, .php. Okay, you'll notice that it's going to say directory not found. Why? Because I'm in the CSF 102 folder and it's saying there's nothing that exists there. So let's go back one. Okay, so now I am on my desktop and I'm going to run the same exact command. Okay, so when I run that same exact command on my desktop, you will notice that it says, yes, we found the file titled index.p. Mind you, I didn't even write the whole index.php. Actually, yes, I did. It found the index.php, okay, and it's saying it recognizes the string that I am looking for, and there are 3 of them, and here is exactly what the strings are. The strings are theme, theme, and theme, and it actually takes out the S to show me that inside of this index.php I actually have a file, a bunch of strings in there called theme, theme, theme. Okay, so remember, you could use the grep command to find and search for files that are very long, that have very, very specific keywords without having to go through that file completely. Okay, so the grep command returns strings from a file. And again, it's very, very useful when you're looking for files in huge logs that have huge amount of information. So please utilize these commands, and I hope that this helps you with this assignment, and continue to practice. And the more you practice with Linux, the better you will get. Again, this is part 1 of the Linux command line. So this is it, okay, for our basic introduction to the Linux command line. Thank you for joining me and watching. Please remember to post any comments or questions that you have, and good luck.